Hello, everybody. This is Brian O'Haron, 211 West Wakefield Boulevard, Highland Lake, Winsted, Connecticut. Last week, the Planning and Zoning Commission decided to remove Section 10-6 dealing with non-conforming property use. Most people in town, Highland Lake and some in Winchester, have non-conforming properties. This will limit their ability to do anything until the new big rewrite of the planning and zoning regulations are available. They say in a few more months the public hearings will begin, but I'll believe it when I see it. You can now read the proposed planning and zoning regulations on the town website, as well as the existing planning and zoning regulations. Go to the website, go to the planning department, and you'll see that there. You can also read Plan of Conservation and Development that was written a few years back, again, by mostly people that want to control the environment more than balance the regulations for all the property owners and future property owners coming to our town. I don't agree with this approach. I think we should have balanced regulations. So I'm setting up a committee called a Citizens Committee to help understand what is being proposed, how different it is from the past, good or bad, whether or not we need any POCD changes to make it more balanced, etc., etc. I also set up this television program weekly to get the information out. That's why I called it Spreading the Word. And most of the news will be about the regulations coming down the pike and the POCD and how they affect everybody. Right now, according to law, and they always follow the law, they have to put an announcement of any public hearing in local newspapers a couple months before they have the hearing. They also post this information on various bulletin boards down in the town hall. I think that we have a very good planning director now. He's fairly new, but he's very good. And he can be very helpful. If you have any questions, you can call him or send him an email down at the town hall, and he will respond one way or the other. Now remember, we're trying to find balanced regulations. That's what we want. It's just like the financial plan for the town. It needs to be balanced. You can't keep spending more than you earn, and you can't keep raising the taxes all the time. So while I'm here, I'm going to keep trying to help. Now, this won't be perfect, any of this. There's a lot of good, I'm sure, coming in the new regulations. And there's probably some things that will be eliminated that'll do a lot of harm for the non-conforming property owners and others. We need to find out what they are, educate everybody in town as best we can that is interested, and not many people probably are interested in it till it affects them, which is too late, of course. But we got to give it a try. And again, we're looking for balance. It's very easy to get the environmental extremists out. A lot of them are school teachers. Many of them have broken the rules themselves or taken advantage of the rules if they have friends on the boards. Some of them are mentioned in this program tonight. But that's life. Everybody isn't the same. They all have their own agendas. I don't mind that. I have an agenda. My agenda is to try to help everybody balance the spending, the revenue, the regulations, the use of their property, etc. When I walk around the lake, as I say in the program, everybody wants to spend an hour and tell me about the problems they've had with the town over the last 20 years or so. Some of those problems have been fixed. We did deal a little bit with the water problems for those regs, the dock and mooring regs, about 10 years ago, and that's helped out quite a bit, as I mentioned in the meeting. You'll hear all this tonight because I'm going to be replaying the voice portion of both the public hearing and the part of the P&Z meeting that actually made the motion to drop 10-6 from the planning and zoning regulations. That happened after, when the motion was made in the regular meeting. George Clausen gave a long explanation of what he thinks. I don't totally agree with him, but that's his view. If you listen to the whole thing, you can hear it, and if you got any questions, send them to me, and I'll put them into the committee. We're going to try to get all the questions we can and answer them. Thank you.
Okay, I would now need a motion to reopen the public hearing, for the amendment to zoning regulation 10.6.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Thank you. At looks like 7:03, we are now open to public hearing.
Okay, and I'll put in just for the record that we sent notice to the surrounding towns, and we got back most all the green cards for that. We also sent a referral to Northwest Hills Council of Governments, and I think I gave you a copy of it, but I'll just read that. They indicated that staff has reviewed this referral and finds no apparent conflict with regional plans or policies, or the known concerns of neighboring towns. And I'll also read, it was in the paper as well, legal notice, Winchester Planning and Zoning Commission, notification of a public hearing. Notice is hereby given that Winchester Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on Monday, July 11th, 2016, at 7 p.m. in the P. Francis Hicks Room, 2nd floor, Town Hall, 338 Main Street, Winstead, for the following application. Town of Winchester, zoning text amendment, commission initiated, Chapter 10, non-conforming building structures and uses, elimination of Section 10.6. At this hearing, interested persons may appear and be heard, and written communications will be received. Copies of the above amendments are on file for public inspection in the Planning and Community Development Office and the Town Clerk's Office, dated Winchester, Connecticut, 28th day of June 2016, Craig Sandman. It should have ran on June 29th and July 4th. And it was also put in the Town Clerk's Office as required.
Okay. The motivation for this action is, I think, best summed up by a letter.
From copies on the table.
Copies on the table from Kevin Nelligan, and exposed tremendous lack of control over regulations under this 10.6. And we were provided the proof of that with a
I can go make it.
Have any discussion or addition to the, that being said, does anyone in the public care to speak to us on behalf of this motion? Or action, excuse me. Yes, sir.
Reading this,
Could you identify yourself, sir, please?
Richard Traub.
Thank you.
417 and plus Winfield. The actual square footage of the existing house, what does that include? Just the complete structure, or when the roof line falls, or I think there's a question there. The existing building.
Square footage of
the existing facility.
Existing facility, square footage, there were some porches on the, I am, just for the record,
What are
I
we
am familiar with this
referring-
man's situation.
What are we referring to?
He's asking a question as to the definition of rebuilding and what is, existing roof lines. Am I correct in that?
It's in the highway.
Okay.
So
Well, you could rebuild basically what's there now in volume. This is typically
Right.
what's done. So it can be the same footprint, same height, approximately. That's
But the actual walls, then there's a sidewalk, but the roof covers porches and stuff. So you go by the walls or you go by the roof line?
Are you talking like if the place burned down or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it would be the walls, and then we try and figure out what your overhangs were. I mean, but if it's, I don't know if anybody's going to get too upset if it's 6 inches off one way or the other, but reasonable overhang. But mainly it's the walls, and your porches, of course, decks, things like that would be included as well.
If there's a projection on one side of the house, does that extra width carry for the whole width of the house, or is it just that?
For rebuilding, you can only rebuild what was there. Exactly. So if you're going to make it bigger in any location, you'd have to go through some procedure to be able to expand it bigger than what was there originally.
You're going to limit the size of the house to being rebuilt?
Well, in a rebuild, yeah, but I mean, there are provisions to expand properties too. Like we used to have 10.6 in the new regs. There's a way to do it with just having staff do it and whatnot. So there are ways to increase the size to some extent of existing homes or cottages up there. Yeah.
And the roof line would be 30 feet?
Yeah, there's a maximum height. I believe it is 30 feet.
30 feet.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't know what you were.
No, I didn't know.
Yeah.
No, really, the public hearing at this point is strictly on the 10.6, the acceptance or whatever. We're open for the public to comment on our decision to eliminate 10.6, and we want the public to express their sentiments one way or the other. That's what this public hearing is about. As to specific things, I don't think that's the point to discuss at this point.
We will be talking about the new regs after this.
Right.
Point in time.
Does anyone in the public have any comment on the, yes, sir? Okay. Come forward and identify yourself.
My name's David LaPointe.
That's not
And, okay. I'm here tonight to speak on 10-6 section. Specifically, I believe that if you have a section that is in place and it isn't broke, why would you want to eliminate it? In fact, this commission has seen many a landowner come before you, and it has been cited by their attorneys as well as their representatives that this section has helped them. And that's what you, by direction of state statute, are supposed to do within the limits, the legal confines of the statutes and the regulations and the laws. So why would anybody want to change a section that has helped the homeowners, the citizens of this town to make their properties better and increase tax revenue based on the home improvements that they would like to make on their cottages or their homes? So all I'm asking is, I don't know why it needs to be changed and taken out. I did read Mr. Nelligan's brief here, or letter to Mr. Stephen Sedlowski, and I've utilized attorneys before in regards to land and tax issues, and you know, it's been working fine. The board has worked with that 10.6 or 10-6, and the people who come before you to make changes or additions, or they want to improve their property, it has worked, because you ultimately have the say and the duty to follow the rules. So I ask, and in talking to people who are in the Taxpayers Association, one of the biggest taxpayers, individuals, is here tonight, you know, who pays a lot of money on a lot of homes, Mr. Demonstrani.
I'm going to get a rebate.
You know, that, and he's always tried to help people also, like you people. We're trying to help people. But the thing is that I see it as this section helping people, and they are able to come before you and make their case. So, without further ado, let the next person speak.
Thank you.
Please identify yourself.
Brian O'Hare, 212, 211 West Springfield Boulevard.
Well, I just want to go through, I'm more interested in the process. I'm not going to nickel and dime on the actual rules themselves. I've always followed the rules. I always pay a lot of money to good people to come and help me get permits and get through all the commissions and committees. Never been turned down by one that I know of, because I get good people to follow the rules, and I tell them to follow the rules, and go with that. Now, when I retired, I came back here. I'm from Torrington. Originally, my wife is as well. Been around the lake all my life because I had relatives up here. The Inland Wetland Commission tried to pull a fast one and changed, I can never remember the number of the portion of the rules, but overnight they wanted to stop a lot of things on the lake that everybody wants. And they didn't want people to have a dock. They didn't want people to have a footing in the water for a dock. They didn't want anybody to have a cantilever dock. There were all kinds of rules like that they were trying to put into these regulations. Now, one of my jobs, I was president for 7 years of the biggest and most, I would say, respected water quality monitoring instrument maker in the world, United Environmental Systems. We supplied instruments that went down 4 miles in the water. They studied the water, and they went out to Jacques Cousteau. They went out to all the oceanographers and limnologists around the world. And I'm telling you this because it's going to fit together here later. And I know more about water quality monitoring than probably anybody else around here. And I didn't tell anybody that. They didn't know it when I came. And when I went to get a permit, I ran into this roadblock about some things that had been approved by the past owner on 212, blah, blah, blah. So I got a petition together. I went around the lake, and I found that almost everybody, not everybody, but most people agreed. They signed a petition. I went before the selectmen. And
I think we were really more interested in your position on 10.6.
I'm more interested in the procedure than I am.
I'm interested in 10.6.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you are. So I think the problem with 10.6 is that nobody knows about it. Nobody that's going to be affected by it really even knows it exists and it's going to happen. Now, hardly anybody reads the paper anymore to find out you're having a meeting. That's why nobody's here tonight. So when I walk around the lake, which I do, not around the whole lake, but when I walk every day on the lake, 6 miles, and everybody grabs me with their concern about, I can't get this little roof over my porch. I can't get this, I can't get that. I've got that for 10 years from people all over the lake when I was walking around. So what I came here for is to try to plead with you to take things a little slower. Get the word out there, everybody, what you're doing. Let them have a chance to get their opinions in. Let them have a chance to come to these kind of meetings. And I always get the feel that these things don't get enough attention paid to the people that are going to be affected by it. So that's why I came here. I've done this all my life. I've done it here in this town. And I'll tell you, when I went around the lake to get people to sign my petition, we won all that now. We have a very nice water commission now. Everybody's happy. There's no real arguments about that anymore. It's all going quiet for 10 years. But when I went around the lake to get a signature, I had to listen to a half an hour to an hour from every single person I talked to about how fed up they are with these things. And I'll say one more thing and then I'll stop. When I lived in California for 7 years and I went in to get permits to do things with my property, they would say, how can we help you? What can we do to help you? How can we make it easier for you? And then I could go down there and I could say, I'm doing some of this work myself, can you please help me? And they'd come out to the house and help me with the rules. We don't have that here. We have a meeting like this on a very, very important thing for the town and for the lake and for everybody. We got 10 people there. That's because nobody knows about it. They don't know what's happening. They're all going to be affected. And I'm already, hearing from people about it. With that, I say thank you.
Any further comment?
I'm not here to support the elimination of 10.6. And if I can indulge the commission to tell them why, I will. Simply because I was one of the authors of 10.6. And I'm looking at this and I'm saying 10.6 has worked very well in this community for people who had problems for a little over 20 years. And I'll tell you how it got to be that 10.6 came about. It was simply based on how Highland Lake came about. Does anybody really know how Highland Lake came about? A company called Union Pin came in and they bought all that property and with a rolling brook, with a small pond, and they decided to dam it up and create water power so that they could manufacture pins and needles, which was a great thing. Now, they had to pay for all of that. So what they did was they built a dam, they built a road all around the lake, and they divided all the property that was there into 50 by 50 lots and blocks. And they sold these 50 by 50 lots and blocks. Some people bought a lot of 50 by 50 lots and blocks, and some people didn't. So the issue came about back in '93 when we sewered the lake, that more people decided they wanted to make an investment in our community and they wanted to help us with our revenue issues. And they were able to do that based on the sewers being installed. But now you've got a situation where the 50 by 50 blocks, some people acquired more, some people acquired less. And then in 1950, zoning came into effect. And as time progressed, they gave setback requirements and so forth. And pretty much, and I think most of you recognize, sitting on the board, that probably over 50% of the lots that are up at Highland Lake they're not conforming lots. They're non-conforming lots. And 10.6 was put together by the existing chair, myself, and other members of my commission when I sat where you did. And the reason for it was because those 50 by 50 blocks got dispersed in different ways. Some people ended up with acres and some people ended up with 3 or 4 50 by 50 blocks. And the problem came in was when people wanted to improve their properties or do something with their properties, they were always before this commission. So I see you guys eliminating 10.6. You're going to be back where we were 20-some years ago trying to sort through the mess that we were trying to sort through, why 10.6 evolved in the first place. And I think 10.6 has been a good regulation. Obviously, you guys didn't have a good experience with 636 East Wakefield Boulevard with 10.6. And I think you got to recognize the state statute says to you that you must favor the applicant in any application. And I didn't see that happen in 636 West Wakefield Boulevard, East Wakefield Boulevard, I'm sorry. So I think it left a bad taste in your mouth as to how 6.6 was applied to that application. And personally, I think 6.6 was a great help to them to bring forward an improvement to their property that made sense for them, made sense for the community, and in turn is going to bring a whole lot more revenue to our community. And if we're going to continue to be progressive in our community, we need to keep 10.6 alive. So I would not support the elimination of 10.6. Although, Stephen, you did say that you have other things that you think would take the place of that, and I'd be open-minded to hear what those were. And I think that's important to most of the people who are sitting here tonight. If you're going to eliminate 10.6, how are we going to progress with all these non-conforming lots? And quite frankly, I read this application and I was privy to the motion that you guys want to approve. And you're approving it based on ecological things and the POCD. And quite frankly, I haven't read anything so ridiculous as that since I read a variance that was approved for our existing mayor some years ago when she turned a conforming lot into a non-conforming lot. That was very upsetting to me. And those are the things that I see happening in this community. I see some bits of corruption. I see some bits of some people getting a little more than others. And 6.6 supports those people who may be less fortunate than other people.
6.6?
Or 10.6, I'm sorry. So I think if you're going to eliminate 10.6, you got to explain to me what's going to take its place. So I don't see that happening this evening. So I would certainly hope that I could speak with you, Steve, on a private basis, and you can enlighten me of that. And I would hope that you will continue this public hearing until that happens. Because I see you discriminating to those who have less than those who do. And I see this as being very discriminatory in eliminating that regulation. I'm sorry I can't support this. I hope you would understand where I'm coming from, and I hope you would look at this in a more objective manner, and please enlighten me as to how you would think something's going to take the place of 10.6. Thank you very much.
Any further discussion from the public?
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I move that we do not close this public hearing based on the testimony that we heard and reconvene on August 8th to allow, like Mr. Ham who mentioned that he'd like to know what's replacing this, and so that we can actually make an informed decision, and also, as was said before, have more people provide input as to how this is progressed, because this affects not only people in the Lake District, but also a number of people around town. So I move that we do not close this public hearing.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Discussion.
Pardon? He seconded it.
Okay.
So you vote on it. So I ask for all those in favor of your motion.
Okay. Just thought you might want to have a discussion.
Pardon?
I just thought you might want to have a discussion on it.
Okay. Further, does anyone like to discuss the motion?
Well, all I've got to say is what takes the place of 10.6 is where it belongs with the Zoning Board of Appeals. That's where you go for something that's out of the realm of what the regulations say.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I do.
Pardon?
I do.
Go ahead.
I don't know, common sense, I think, to extend the public comment for another month is not going to hurt. I just think that if there's more people that haven't heard about it because they don't read the newspaper, and this is a true fact, a lot of people don't read the newspaper, a lot of people don't listen to the news. They want to come into the next hearing, fine. If they don't show up, then so be it. We vote. I mean, a month is not going to hurt us. Makes a little bit of sense. Jerry and I knock heads all the time, disagree, but I think this one time, I mean, allowing a month is not going to hurt. 3 weeks to get any further comments, and if people want to drop written comments off to our P&Z office, then so be it. Otherwise, if they don't attend a meeting, then I don't want to hear it. they're given more than ample time.
I've had 2 months already. This has been published.
I
Been published.
I know, I fully agree, but
It was well in the papers. It's not been
people-
something that is obscure.
I know, but people.
Okay, I'm just for the record.
You know,
I'm just.
I know, I agree. But
Fine.
a lot of people, my comment is a lot of people do not read the newspapers,
Okay.
don't listen to the news,
Fine.
sit in their home like hermits and could care less, and then, you know, whatever.
And I'll just mention, too, that we had, this came up a couple of months ago, back in May, and, we found that there were some obvious problems with the regulation, the way it was written. And, again, reading Mr. Nelligan's comments, you can see that, I can get in what the problems were, I guess. I mean, basically, as long as you don't get any close to the property line, you can do pretty much anything you want, and it overrides the coverage requirements and some other requirements that we have. So the commission had some problems with that, with the way it was written. And we had basically 2 options. It could be either fixed, we could add some stuff, and I actually did propose that as well, or we could eliminate it at this point. And I think the commission chose to just eliminate it because the new regulations are coming out hopefully within the next couple of months anyway, and it's going to be all different. So rather than spend a whole bunch of time trying to fix this temporarily, I think we're just going to move forward and just make sure the new ones allow what we want or what the commission wants, in a clear and concise way. And we can certainly go over that.
Well, don't you think clear and concise should be a part of elimination? If you're going to modify and change, you should propose those as well as the elimination of the regulation. And that's why I'm saying you need to show, not only me, I've only been privy to this for the last 48 hours. And I think that that's not right. Your legal notices were published in June 29th and July 4th. Okay, I can agree with that. But that doesn't mean that you need to close your public hearing. I think you should open your minds and look at what you're doing here and offer the repair with the removal. You can't just remove and have no regulation to cover that application that may come in presently. You're talking about voting on this motion this evening, and that's what got my attention. I don't see a big discussion that's been had over this and the impacts that it would have. And if you don't have something to replace it, God help you.
Yeah, I'd like to say a point on that, and that is that, put it in back pages and paper that nobody ever reads. I didn't hear about it until about 48 hours ago either, and most of the people that I know don't even got a clue what's going on. So, the legal part I'm not going to argue with you about, illegal is illegal. But, as fellow residents and friends and neighbors and family members, wouldn't it be nice to reach out to all the people and make sure they all know about it and get their 2 cents in? And if you're right, they'll probably agree with you. If not, maybe you'll agree with them. I see a difference between you saying, here's a legal aspect, and a difference between the other personal, interpersonal. And that's what I like to do. Well, ask people. I do that every day. What do you think? And what would you do in a situation like this? Try to get as much input. That's systems analysis. That's what systems analysts do. But anyway, thanks.
Just very briefly, Matthew Laurent. So if I'm understanding correctly, 10.6 is really what happens with this regulation is very short term. The new regulations, if they're passed, would eliminate all the old regulations anyway. So 10.6 is really a short term.
Yeah, so the next couple of months.
Realistically, it's a 2 to 3
couple of
months.
months and stuff, yeah.
And that's it, is really what we're
Correct.
talking about.
Yeah.
And am I overstepping my bounds? Because I was in the meeting with the town attorney, and I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but in essence, to put it very simplistically, Irish terminology, this legally was indefensible by the town. It was too broad. There was nothing within the bounds. Am I overstepping my bounds?
No, it's definitely.
I mean, I'm not trying to look at. We're not trying to usurp. I'm not trying to usurp anybody. I am not trying to. But virtually, this regulation is so broad and so inspecific that it did not provide any means by which we, as was proved, so that's the only reason this is action is taken.
So then the next question, I think it's hard to separate then 10.6 out because it's really your new regs, which are going to be, they're going to replace the old regs. So 10.6 is going to be moved no matter what.
Yeah.
Right, so then the question is, how do the new regs, and that's probably the next discussion on the new regs, how do the new regs then address those situations? Or don't they?
It's another whole issue. I mean, I don't know if I want to get.
But they're related. You can't separate them because no matter what you vote, 10.6 is gone when you vote.
There's a provision in the new regs that allows a staff approved, which means you get a zoning permit. A staff approved. Let me pull it. I don't want to quote the wrong thing.
Before I do that, let me make another comment. I'm not going to do that. And that is that, hey, it's going to be gone. It's going to be gone. Why bother? Why bother?
Identify yourself, sir.
Brian, 211, Route 12, Lakewood Boulevard, 1974.
This is in free for all. Come forward, please. I don't want an informal discussion.
All right. It's okay. I'm happy to have everything on the record. I usually write it down what's happened today. Why bother for 2 or 3 months? If you can't do regs, everything's coming in. I just don't understand it. And that's what a lot of people have that same kind of equation. When they understand that the regs are coming in 2 or 3 months, my bet is they'll probably be a year or two. But that's another story. So that's why it's good to inform people, get them involved, talk to them, and not just be officials sitting behind a half around that.
So basically, the new regs say, understanding that many properties in town predate the zoning regulations, et cetera, et cetera. So any structure that is legal non-conforming as to a requirement listed below may apply to the zoning enforcement officer for a permit to conduct certain expansions within the constraints set forth herein. Other requirements of these regulations, such as limits on maximum impervious surfaces, shall still apply. And setbacks is the big one. A principal residential or commercial industrial structure abutting other non-residentially zoned property. So it's basically principal residential or other commercial industrial properties. Anyway, that does not meet one or more of the setback requirements may be expanded up to an additional 20% or 18 feet, whichever is larger, provided such expansion does not come any closer to the property line which creates the nonconformity. If 2 setback nonconformities exist in the corner, that corner may be expanded to the limits of the 2 sides combined. In other words, you can square it off. In addition, the height of the structure may be increased under these same lateral limitations up to the height limit of the district or 2 full stories, whichever is less. And it also has a provision in here to allow for accessibility for folks that may need, ramps or things like that. So it's similar. It's a little bit more limited, but it's similar
But it gives you
to
more
10
discretion.
Yeah, and it's you don't even have to come to the commission. We wanted to make it easier. You just but this you can do this once. You can't keep doing this every year. You can do it once. And if you had a 10.6 or a variance or something to expand, you can't do it again. So basically, you get one bite at the apple with this. But I think it's a really easy way for people to do that first expansion if they're going to rebuild or what have you. So that's what the new language is, and it's a draft, so we can tweak it, and we can adjust it as necessary. I'm sure we will. Have.
And when do you propose to adopt those?
We are going to talk about them tonight. We could be going to hearing on these things in 6 to 8 weeks.
Well, that's if you kill the horse, you're never going to be able to ride it. You get what I'm saying? If you don't feed it, it'll never grow. So if you eliminate 10.6 now, before you have the revenue for 10.6, where are you going to be? It's discriminatory, is what it is. If you're, especially now, you're planning on reinstalling something.
A better version of it, yes.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. But I think the elimination should be part of the birth.
Am I mistaken, or if someone wants something outside of what the regulations say, they go to the zoning board of appeals? Is that not the case?
They can try to go to the zoning board of appeals. The zoning board of appeals, though, is very limited. That's why we have this in here. It's very limited in what they can give. Basically, if you have a camp, you're done. I mean, you can't make it any bigger. You have legal use of the property. You have a use of it. There's no guarantee that you can have a bigger house or a big, that's not what, you bought the property having what was there, and the ZBA doesn't necessarily have the authority to allow you to build something much larger, on the same property. It has to be, again, there has to be a hardship that's unique to that property. And every property, everybody's talking about the lake, every property at the lake's the same, 50 by 50, 50 by 100. They're all substandard. I mean, I think there's 8 lots in the whole place. 17 lots that actually meet the requirements.
300
out of hundreds. So
it's pretty generous.
Yeah, I mean, it's the courts have really tightened down on what the ZBA can legally do. As far as variances are concerned, there has to be a real hardship, something unique with the land, wetlands or a cliff or something that makes it really difficult to build. And some exceptions to that, but
The point I'm making is don't kill the patient till you have a cure. You know what I'm saying? Have the cure first. I think it would make everyone in this community more comfortable to see the cure so the patient lives.
why I get paid big bucks.
Pardon? Oh yeah, that's why I get the big bucks. Yeah.
I say you go either way with it, fix it or.
Well, I mean, my guidance on this is from the meeting that we had with the town attorney, and it was of great length. And I don't want to use the word indefensible, but my take away from the hour and some odd minutes that we met was that this 10.6 was much too liberal. However, I'm not a lawyer. I don't want to use words and get quoted that I'm saying something. But in essence, he said that it did not in any way allow us, as a planning and zoning commission, to adequately regulate a non-conforming situation. It was just much too broad. Had no, and if you read the letter in the particular case to which the commentator is referring to, it just opened Pandora's box as far as I was concerned. And our action, quite honestly, was precipitated by myself, was to, until the new regulations get involved, I am concerned that it would just get out of control. So that is the impetus. If you want to castigate someone, you can castigate them. I'm here. But we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion?
I think you ought to repeat the motion so
Okay,
that we read it, please.
He said to not close the public hearing.
He doesn't want to close
I
the
just want to
public.
make sure everybody understands what the vote is
To
about.
not close the public hearing until the August meeting. He didn't say the next meeting would be July 25th. So to clarify, you had said August,
August
correct?
8th, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. With that motion, all in favor? Those opposed? Motion fails. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second. Okay, all those in favor?
Now, the regular P&Z meeting.
Now, for discussion, Steve has had put together some, on the first letter we have on July 8th, which is testimony received during the hearing. Regulation does not provide the proper orderly development of town and the adequate protection environment recommended PLCD, and thus we approve our petition to eliminate Section 10.6 zoning regulations, specifically to eliminate the following language. That being said,
I'll make that motion.
Would you please?
So let me just read it completely.
Please, for the record.
Okay, the following motion is what I'm making. We find through testimony received at the hearing that Section 10-6 of the zoning regulations does not provide for the proper orderly development of the town and the adequate protection of the environment as recommended in the POCD. And thus we approve our petition to eliminate Section 10-6 of the zoning regulations, specifically to eliminate the following language. 10.6, a building containing a permitted use but which does not conform to the requirements of these regulations regarding building height limits, floor area, area and width of lot, percentage of lot coverage, and required yards and parking facilities may be enlarged or altered provided A, such enlargement provides for a permitted use containing no more family dwelling units than now exist. B, any additions are constructed within the applicable yard requirements or with the approval of the commission are not nearer to the lot lines than the existing building. And that, in addition, we would set the effective date as changed to July 22nd, 2016.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to, I think one of the things that was pointed out to us was I think the intent was to, they might elaborate the regulations for the last 20-something years, is that it was the whole package. It was coverage, it was setbacks, all of these issues. And Attorney Nelligan pointed out that the way it was written, it only referred to specifically the setbacks. So we had the issue that came up, and it's not just this one that we had before us during May. We've had the calculation of coverage as defined by current regulations included driveways. It didn't talk about impervious, it talked about just driveways and walkways.
Buildings. Just driveways and buildings.
Yeah, driveways and buildings.
Structures, yeah.
So in that situation, and I've seen it in other situations, we've got people that have used, just a gravel area that pretty much covered the lot. So coverage it's very easy to cut back on that coverage because it was pretty much the entire lot when you took about the building and the parking area. So I think that the issues that we're trying to address here with this, to eliminate this and address it in the new regulations that are coming up, is to, first of all, if somebody has a property that particular one was like 1.8 feet off of one side yard, is get the opportunity, maybe if you're going to rebuild something, to be have to put it on the same footprint that's there. They might be better suited to go ahead and check and verify that there's a better way to locate this, because some of these things have been there for 50 years. And have the opportunity, even though you're not going to reduce the issue of it's a non-conforming situation, you might be able to better position, instead of 1 foot, 1.8 feet off the lot, you might be able to better position it on a 50-foot wide lot. And I think that that's part of the discussions we have with regards to this. And I would think we have a better opportunity to have better development on these properties. But the key is there's got to be a mechanism to do it. And that's what I think is what we're talking about with the new regulations. And I appreciate, don't do something before you have a way to handle it. But I think during this building season, what we've seen in the past years through these applications, it's there's been some ability to really not answer the real core of why this regulation was created, so that we wouldn't have a great deal more coverage. Coverage was the big issue, I think, on this, and it just didn't happen with regards to Highland Lake. It was the entire community. It's not Highland Lake specific. But we've seen issues where applications have been brought in under 10.6 and simultaneously been brought into zoning board of appeals. And then there's the issue where it comes back, and now we've got the zoning board of appeals that's approved this, and then sometimes zoning board of appeals has actually approved crossing the property line, which I don't know how that could happen, but if nobody challenges it, I guess it can. And then they come back to planning and zoning and want to raise the structure to another level on the variance part of it. So it gets kind of messy. We all want to use our property to the maximum we can and get our benefits from it, and we certainly want to have growth in the community and our grant list expanded. I mean, the amount of revenue that comes out of that particular area of this town and any of the beautiful watershed areas that we have is critical to the community, because our community with the business district is way undervalued. So we're getting it only from the outlying areas in Winchester Center and the lake area. So it's off the subject a little bit, but I think that was the thinking, and that's why I supported, let's get rid of this, and then, let's really have a good discussion about the proposals that are being put forward in the regs.
I have a question about the line here where it says adequate protection of the environment as recommended in POCD. Are there specific lines in the POCD that are related to the removal of 10-6?
No.
The POCD mentions in multiple places that we need to protect the environment, protect the lake, water quality, etc. So having this somewhat uncontrolled growth that could be possible under this section kind of goes against that, being able to cover the whole lot with buildings and things like that. So that's, I know everybody's always mentioned water quality coverage, so this, comes right into that. It's all related, certainly. And same thing with controlled growth of the community. It's the same idea.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? Carries. Passes.
Well, you heard their decision. They passed a motion to remove section 10-6. That would help property owners that had small properties, and that's mostly people in Winston, one way or the other, town, lake, or Winchester, to get permits when they had non-conforming properties. As you heard in the program, that was put in 22 years ago by a more balanced Planning and Zoning Commission, in my opinion, than the one we have today. The one we have today, it seems, is more interested in protecting the environment than helping the property owners, especially the ones with non-conforming properties, which are the majority of the property owners. You heard George Clausen's rationale during that piece I played for you. Not everybody agrees with him. He has some good points, but most people that aren't on these commissions think that most of them have hidden agendas. And again, we all have agendas, but we like to see people get agendas out into the open. We want to see a more balanced set of planning and zoning regulations. So if you have any property now and you think you want to add to it for retirement or for ease of use or convenience or necessity, you should talk to Steve Sadlowski down at the town hall, the planning director. He's very good. And apply for permits. You can also have your engineers and lawyers read the existing plan of conservation and development, the existing regulations, and the future regulations. They're all on the website at the town hall. And you can get an idea what's coming down the pike. But you never know for sure till we get through the public hearings, and we may need some changes to POCD, we may not. We may need to put out a petition or two, we may not. We don't know how it's all going to go. But I think that these P&Z changes are so big that we need to pay a lot of attention to it. We can't just leave it to the commissions. We must get involved. Torrington, many years ago, had a similar situation where they totally did their planning and zoning regulations. They do keep their POCD up to date more often than we do, in an evolutionary manner. And they set up a committee, Citizens Committee. So I'm setting up the Citizens Committee to try to help everybody while I'm still here and able to do so. We need a lot of help, so if any of you want to help, just contact me and I will talk to you about it. If you have any skills like the ones I posted on the program tonight, if you know how to read regulations, and if you know how to explain that to people, and if you know how to ask questions of people around town, and if you know how to answer the questions and find the answers and get them one way or another, then we can use you on this committee. Then we will have a committee that can help balance the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals. The whole thing's a mess right now, in my opinion, and once these things are approved, will be with us for a long, long time to come, and they will be very difficult to change unless the constitution of these boards becomes more balanced over the years, and that's tough with our form of government and our situation financially in this town. So pay attention. See you next week. Good night.